So we listen respectfully. We don't argue. Um, I was wrong.
Yeah.
Okay. So today, um, for the people just joining us, we've been working from. I've been doing a series that I just wanted to try on looking at God as energy. And when I say look at God as energy, what does that mean? We're so used to conceptualizing the sacred as a person. And every tradition, if you're part of Western religion, says that's an idolatry. All right, that there's a commandment against having any image of God. So when we free from that, when you begin to look at some of the contemporary theologians like Paul Tillich was the one who said, God is the ground of our being. And I love that. So if you begin to think in terms of what can you say is the very foundation of our existence, and we begin to look at neuroscience, what subatomic physics is teaching us, then we know that everything we're looking at is a dance of energy, that there is no such thing as solidity, that it's all energy dancing in patterns. Now, the thing we've done in the West is we've always assumed that matter is stupid. That comes from the Greek materialists, that we bring meaning to the inert, stupid matter of the universe. But what we're beginning to see is that the energy of the universe is intelligent. That
So
it,
maybe the opposite of intelligent could be ignorant. No,
well, not ignorant. Ignorant
just
implies that I'm
stupid.
actively not doing it. This is
Okay.
saying there ain't nothing there to get.
Okay.
Okay, so it's not even worth considering, which is how we treat material things. We
Right.
don't treat them as alive, which is the opposite of animism, which treats everything as alive, which my granddaughter
Right.
instructed me on.
Everything has a spirit.
My 10-year-old granddaughter told me that everything has a spirit. So I said, okay, glad you got that. So when you think about energy as carrying intelligence or information, I, I had trouble with that until I thought if you look at a radio signal will carry all the information to reproduce a symphony, and it's carrying that on energy. So as we begin to think of vibrational energy as itself the definition of intelligence, then we begin to get on board with a different way of thinking. Not only is it intelligent, but it has certain characteristics that manifest in all expressions of energy. And these are characteristics like, believe it or not, compassion. Compassion is not an add on that we do, it's what happens when you actually participate freely in that dance of energy. It is playful, and we're going to look at that today. It is the Hindus conceive of the universe as the dance of Shiva, and you see him dancing on a corpse with his 8 arms. Um, that at its heart, they say it's play. The word is Leela, which is the name that our car has.
I named my
Car
car
is Leela.
Leela.
So we, because she has a spirit, she very definitely has a
See?
spirit. So we've been looking at the first experience, and now we're kind of cycling back of the sacred is when energy hits your senses. Okay. And think about what's happening there. Energy, which has no form, hits your ear and it becomes sound. It becomes something that you can relate to. All right. That's information. That's your experiencing the sacred as sound. When you see light, you experience the sacred as color. The same way with touch. All our senses are ways of receiving the sacred in a form that we can acknowledge. Uh, and that purity of sensation hitting our senses is the purest experience that you're going to have of the sacred because the mind is not involved, hopefully, in interpretation. There's no thinking, there's no thought. I just read an article this week that it's like, oh, duh, we can think without using thought. Yes, you have a way of processing. It's called awareness, and that's what we're exploring uh, in these lectures is to receive the world through direct awareness rather than filtering it through thought. Those of you who are enamored by thought, they keep bumping down how much you can experience through thinking. They started out thinking we could experience 128 bits a second. We now bumped it down to 10 bits of information a second. Your body processes 20 million bits of information a second. Okay? That's the mismatch. So when you open up, what we're doing is beginning to let go of a very narrow focus. And in the Hindu religion, again, I'm trying to catch a bunch of new people up. We go through a sequence where first we shut out the external world, and then we begin um, to tune into these senses, which Western science has discovered that we have, like interoception and proprioception, nociception. Um, and that's called what? Brahmacharya? What's that turning inward?
Pratyahara.
Pratyahara. So pratyahara is beginning to tune on in internally to the sensations in the body. All right. Then we go to single pointed focus, which is your ability to stay focused on your breath. Then we begin to open out, which is what we've been doing lately, to where I'm focused here, I'm grounded, I'm tethered here, but now I'm also aware of everything that's going on. So imagine the amount of information I'm able to process now by being aware of my breath, my internal sensations, what's happening in my internal world, and the external world all simultaneously without the intervention of thought. Now we're going to the last part, which is samadhi. Samadhi is when the ego is gone.
It's the
When
eighth limb of yoga.
it's the eighth limb, where these are the 8 limbs of yoga that most people don't teach anymore. So in this one, my trying to control, even through understanding, is gone. It's a total act of surrender and letting go into the flow of sensations that I'm experiencing. So now there is no separation between me and what I'm experiencing. So where do we experience this? Okay, sometimes you may have had the experience of looking at a sunset, and there comes a point where you're no longer me sitting here looking at the sunset, but you disappeared into the sunset. Okay, or you disappeared into the ocean, or you disappeared into someone's eyes. But one of the most powerful that all mystical traditions talk about is your sexuality. And so the invitation today has begun to use your sexuality as a gateway to union with God. This is totally understood in the Hindu traditions. As a matter of fact, you look at books like the Kama Sutra and the Anagaranga, they have an entire temple carved with sexual positions to invite you to begin to explore the sensations and the joy of your sexuality as a way of accessing the sacred. And a Western theologian, Matthew Fox, who was a Catholic priest, started going back to our demonization of the body and our demonization of sexuality. And he says, Jesus would not have understood this. Okay. For Orthodox Jews in Jesus's day, sex was a mitzvah. It was a blessing. And sex on the Sabbath was a double mitzvah. That means you got a double blessing for having sex. This is one of the ways that you keep holy the Sabbath is to have sex. Now, there's obviously two different ways, as there always are, in terms of approaching life. One is from the perspective of ego, where I use my partner as an object for self gratification. That's not what we're talking about here. What we're talking about here is entering into that flow of sensation that we have during our sex life and beginning to let ourselves disappear into that flow of sensation. So there's a book called the Radiance Sutra, and I wanted to do a little bit of that before we go into the meditation. Um, this I've got some more readings that I just absolutely love. Okay, this is a dialogue between the goddess and the god. She is Shakti. Now, listen to this. The view of the feminine in Eastern religions is so fundamentally different than the way we think of it. The feminine is not soft. The feminine is associated with the lower three chakras that we've been exploring. So when we were doing the thing of being rooted in the earth, that's being rooted in the feminine. Women, if you're looking for a guy who's in touch with the feminine, you want a guy who's going to have a solid foundation, who's rooted in a purpose, in a service to the sacred. Because as Shakti, Shakti means that feminine energy. The best way to translate it is its power, its ability, its strength. It's energy without force, without coercion. It's capability. There's a word gaining currency in spiritual circles now called agency. It's having a capacity to maintain a steady course in your life. This is all third chakra energy. So this is a conversation between the earth moving up, having that reciprocal give and take that the feminine has, bringing it up here. As I said, I'm worthy, I'm capable, I can maintain like a mountain my direction, regardless of what life brings me. And now she's having conversation with her partner, Shiva. And he is pure consciousness. So we did some of those meditations where we receive the unformed energy through a crown chakra, move it down to intuition, begin to give it form here. Well, now the two of them are meeting in the heart. Here is the sacred couple. So when you go to a Hindu temple, you'll always see the gods paired. The male god can't function without his Shakti. There is no separation. The two emerge together. So this is really a dialogue between our lower centers and our upper centers. Okay, so they sing to each other, and we're invited to listen to their song that they have. And it's a beautiful way of talking about using relationships to enter into the spirit. So here's one. This is the Sutra 83 that says, everyone knows there is me and there are all these others. And we all understand that. But lovers know that there is me, and then there is the source of this me, the ground of our being. And that is ever mysterious. Each contact with an other is a spark of the divine. Lovers move through this world awake to intimacy. Each touch, a revelation of God, never to be repeated. What a fundamentally different way of beginning to look at our relationships. So the fellow who translated this stuff, I forget his name, was it Roche, said that
Yes.
Sanskrit uses a dynamic physical term that implies when you come into a relationship, I'm embracing you. The sutra seems to be saying any relationship is a kind of embrace, whether we're physically touching or holding them in our heart. Yogis need to be aware at all times of the texture, the feeling tone of that touch, to be so skillful, so alert to the magic of what you're creating with this other person. Practicing yoga, especially pranayama, the breath practice, and meditation, heightens our awareness of the space between things. Currents of energy flow between the chakras. It flows in the body and startlingly between our body and other body. This energy that we call God is the connecting glue of the universe. And when we get outside of this, we begin to experience that true union that makes this a universe, the energy of connection. Okay? Yoga amplifies the power of our attention so that when we listen to someone, when we look at them, there's more going on than we're used to experiencing. A transmission of prana, life force energy, is moving back and forth between you. On the level of energy, it's as if we are touching them or holding them, whether we're in physical contact or not. The attitude of this contact of me with others is sacred and powerful for everyone involved. We attend to the rhythms, the pulsation, the sensuousness of the divine energy we're made of that flows through us. As we engage in these meditation techniques in our lovemaking and our intimacy, we're alerted to the presence of the sacred permeating our body and the body of those we're with. All of these moments involve savoring the incredible intensity, and listen to that phrase, the incredible intensity underlying the most common experiences. They work by activating the senses and extending the range of senses further into the inner and outer world and the basic fundamental dynamics of life. It's a deep dive into alignment, into the underlying reality of what life is. Balance is there at every step. The unshakable serenity of the depths is used as a foundation so we can tolerate the electrifying vastness of the universe. Now, you need to understand that phrase. Okay, listen, the unshakable serenity of the depths are used as a foundation. That's why I've told you. First, you cultivate first chakra, second chakra, third chakra. This is not talking about the level of their importance, is that they're the lower chakras or they're not that important. No, you can't, you don't have a capacity to open to the heights until you've established rootedness in the feminine. It's the feminine that enables you to go and expand outward into connection with the rest. That's too intense to handle without that grounding in the first, second, and third chakra. We're invited to cross the threshold to walk by the guardians of the gate. That's those temple dogs, the food dogs, the Archangel Michael keeping out anybody who's got fear. Let go of fear, total surrender. Face our terrors, because the ego is terrified of getting lost in sexual union, and make our way into the immense and timeless mystery that's always calling us. So again, we're going to do a meditation on sexuality, and I want you to use your active imagination. So this is using the meditative tool of activating neural pathways that have been laid down. So your PTSD is a way of accessing all the negative things. So glimmer is to take something that was extremely positive and recall it with the same vividness and intensity. And think about how when you first start making love, your distracted mind, you're thinking about dinner, you're thinking about what you're doing, you're thinking about what they're doing, did I brush my teeth? Um, am I really in the mood for this? All those kind of thoughts come in. And then you get into the energy and think about what it's like when you first begin to feel your partner responding to you. Oh my God, I'm doing something. She's responding pleasurably. She's receptive. All of a sudden, I start getting excited. Okay. And then as she's getting excited, I'm getting more excited. She feels me getting excited. Then she starts getting excited. And you begin to lose track of what's going on. And it starts to be a place where it doesn't matter who's doing what to who, everybody's getting excited. Can anybody relate to what I'm talking about? And then you begin to build, and he talks in here, and I didn't go into it, into the bandhas, the holding of energy, when you feel the orgasm beginning to mount. And you can relate to that feeling of pressure and sometimes postponing that and holding it. So it really begins to become intense. And then you hit the point where you know you're going to orgasm. Any anxiety about that is gone. You know the flow is going to happen and you totally surrender into that. And I want you to think about that moment Don't think about that moment. I see that's what language screws you up. I want you to recall that moment in all its intensity and vividness and ask, where the hell were you? At a moment of orgasm, you're never there. I'll tell you who is there. God's there. Okay. It's a wave of ecstatic union. And as Matthew Fox says, when I make love spiritually, I make love to God through my partner. And that's something we're never taught to even begin to think about opening up to. Okay. But it's there. And you may have experienced it. But the thing about spirituality is we have spiritual experiences all the time, but we don't recognize them as spiritual. And we've been taught that this is not spirituality, that this is dirty, okay, that we shouldn't be doing these things. No, we should be doing it. So when I make love sacredly, I make love, my bed becomes an altar, and making love becomes a sacramental act, an act of making the mundane sacred, of our bodies becoming sacred, of our relationship becoming sacred. So that sacredness is always there as a potential awaiting us to bring our awareness to it. Remember, where your awareness goes, the energy flows. And to see this at how the process of ego dissolution happens during intercourse, very naturally. And the more you think about it, again, same way with your meditation, Randy Newman's song, Maybe I'm Doing It Wrong. Maybe I'm doing wrong. Don't seem to be getting what everyone's getting. Maybe I'm doing it wrong. Sometimes I get off a good one. No, I think it is. No, I know it is. No, I shouldn't be thinking at all. Maybe I'm doing it wrong. That's the same thing going on in your meditation, the same process of setting that aside, getting into the flow, letting the ego dissolve and disappear, disappearing into the sensation. So find a comfortable position. If this gets too intense and you need a moment by yourself, just shut off your screen. Thank you, Julie. Yeah, 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 yeah.
I don't know if y'all can hear that. I don't know how Bart has his
They probably
sound
can.
set, but I'm doing a virtual bowl, and if not, then at the end you'll see my hands go up that we're concluding.
So begin with your breath, being the flow of sensation. Letting go of all thinking about the breath, any effort to control the breath, and let yourself totally surrender to that flow of energy. Noting how bringing your awareness to the sensations intensifies them. Trusting the breath to breathe itself. It breathes for you all night long. Anchoring yourself in the present moment with the sensations and letting the awareness begin to explore the body, opening to all the sensations that are present but that we actively ignore. Feeling the pressure, the warmth, the coolness, the vibration, the tingling, the sensations of flowing, stagnation, constriction, and expansion, all dances of energy, not analyzing, not judging, just experiencing that field of sensation that you call your body with a sense of curiosity, and openness, and wonder, beginner mind. And from this place, bring to mind a moment of intimacy, a moment of sexuality that was particularly significant to you. And without analysis, without judgment, criticism, begin to sit back and witness that interaction with another person from the perspective of the energy flowing between you. Feeling how your partner aroused energy in you, how your body spontaneously moved in response to that energy, in a dance of awakening each other, feelings that you savored as you felt their responsiveness. Remembering the spirit of life singing in every cell of which you're composed, the body coming alive, feeling of deep communion with the energy which is the life of another. Experiencing this time with another as sacred, spiritual opening. It awakens you to the joy, peace, spontaneity, creativity that you carry. And notice any feelings of shame, any feelings of obligation to your partner, any feelings that constrict. anxieties, resentments, awakening of other emotions like sadness, emptiness, and loneliness. And imagine inviting those kinds of energies to be a part of this dance. Feeling all separation, release into the flow and dance of sexual energies between you. Sexuality can be deeply healing. We carry wounds from other people's energy in our bodies. Imagine those traumas dissolving in this energy. Any sense of unworthiness, being banished by the loving, joyful energy that's singing through you. And know that energy is the true self, which is God, flowing through you and your partner. Feeling how your sensuality is also awakened. Remembering your body is a sensual instrument. Remember moments after lovemaking where you're awakened to the textures of the sheets, what you were wearing, your partner's touch, the smells, the sounds around you. That now become a part of your lovemaking. Reclaiming the sexuality as the embodiment of love and communion. The pleasures, the thrill of the touch of God, that life force energy. Remember not to treat your body or your partner's body as an object, but to honor your lovemaking. Your body is our most sacred tool for experiencing the sensations, that life force energy, which is the core of our being. Welcoming your sexuality to come fully alive in a sacred space, seeing its power to carry you to the very center of the essence of life. Awesome, joyous, spontaneous, sensual, rhythmic, playful, sacred, alive, aroused, erotic, creative, all sacred gifts. Remembering that experience of deep connection, not only with your partner, but with yourself and life around you. Remembering those deep resonances together in sacred embrace, giving each other life force energy, honor, deep pleasure, and receiving life and love, deep pleasure. The energy of communion, life celebrating itself through each other, riding the rhythms of life together, sensuous touch, flesh, desire, delicious. Moving together and riding the waves of energy, following the flow of energy and discovering deeper and deeper levels of surrender. The achings of emptiness, the quaking spasms of ecstasy. Melting into union, a blessing.
Completes our practice.
All righty. Julie. Hanging upside down like are you in the bat cave?
There we go.
Well, I was in the Bat Cave actually because my experience, what I went deep into childbirth. I had three natural childbirths, and I just, I wouldn't, I just couldn't stop what was happening as I was listening to you. I wasn't going to go, oh, I'm doing it wrong,
Yeah.
So I just because I did not have that intimacy with my children's father between us. But I had natural childbirth with him. And our third, we did at home. And before I gave birth, he puts his hand inside me and is going, there's the chin. He goes, there's the forehead. And he's feeling inside me, the forehead, the nose, the chin, and he's going deeper inside me. And he goes, and there's the neck. And then he looks at me in the most intimate way and he goes, and there's no cord. So it was like, okay, let's push this baby out. And then my baby was born. But I never really looked at it at this so intimate with this man. And so it's like I don't have to discount my relationship with him, that we never had whatever the communion sexually, that we could connect that way, as you were talking about. But look at what we had and how that was so sexual. But anyway, yeah,
Well,
so thank
I,
you. I'll just stop there. But
I like where you went actually really well. So don't label sexuality, because to me, a much broader term is the sensuality. Okay, because when you think of the root of the word sensuality, it's senses. And senses are what translates the sacred into something relatable to me. So as we're exploring the sensual, we're experiencing our connection with God through another human being, which is what happened there. The process of childbirth is another one of those surrenders into a sacred flow that you can't control. That baby is 100% in control when it gets here, and signals contractions and all that kind of stuff. So the fighting the child coming is hell. The more you can be present, the more you can surrender, the more you can soften, the more the process happens through you. So that's still a very profound spiritual teaching and spiritual moment and sensual moment. I love it. Yeah, not something different. Claim it. Yeah. Okay. Hello, Bentley.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Yes, and see you.
Excuse me.
I just wanted to say that this meditation made me realize that through a sacred sexual experience in the future, I can heal a sexual trauma from the past. So that
Yeah.
never occurred to me.
Oh,
Thank you.
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Because if you think about what we're doing in therapy, is we're taking energies that this whole thing is about this. Trauma is simply energy you couldn't process at the time. All right. And so what we need to be able to process that is exactly what we said in the beginning, the capacity to handle the intensity of the energy. That's why we have to be deeply grounded in our bodies. Our child bodies couldn't handle it. Our brains weren't myelinized. We didn't have a conceptual framework for handling it. And most of us, interestingly enough, um, uh, people that had safety after they were traumatized often don't develop severe PTSD symptoms, because they're able to release it because they've got another body that helps them process those energies. So we're looking for a safe place. And that's why touch is so important to me and always has been in all the healing of traumatic energy, is the feeling of a safe container around you, that you can feel free to let go into those energies and know you have a connection back to what we call regulation. I knew my therapist could always have me regulated before I hit the door, no matter how much trauma I processed in our sessions. So, yeah, having that with your partner is ideal. If you got it with your partner and you understand the process, you don't need a therapist. Okay. Good luck with that, Ben. At least you got a roadmap now. Huh? Okay, anybody else? Okay, let me say something that I got into the middle of this, and then I said, I hope I'm not shaming anybody who can't relate to these experiences. All right. If you're a person that couldn't relate to it, it's because you've been acculturated not to shop for that. That's what I call is that if I go to my sexuality and it's simply an act that I'm performing for my partner out of a sense of obligation, and that's what you've been taught you're supposed to do, yeah, you won't do that. If you've been taught that sex is dirty and the opposite of spirituality, you're not going to have that experience. Or you may have had it and then felt deep shame afterwards because it felt so good and took it away from yourself. So the point of this was to reclaim, okay, several aspects. One, the feminine, and two, uh, our sexuality. Now, the history of that is Paul taught about the war between the spirit and the flesh, and we always think of the flesh as our sexual nature. There is nothing in Paul that will lead you to see that kind of a reading. Because when he talks about the flesh, he says, the spirit's willing, but the flesh is weak. The things I want to do, I don't do, and the things I don't want to do, I do. When Paul's talking about the flesh, he's talking about addiction. Read the flesh as addiction, that I've got something going on in me that I've lost control of. And yes, that is antithetical to the spiritual life. Um, He also talks about it with courtesans, temple prostitutes, and stuff as an objectification of the self, but turning yourself into an object to get things, which is the exact opposite of what we were talking about today. Sexuality didn't get attached to flesh until the 4th century after Jesus was dead. And the guy who did it, you don't even know his name. He's Dionysius the Pseudo-Areopagite. And he is the one, he's one of the desert fathers who associated the flesh with sexuality. And ever since then, we got into a spirit body dualism, which is Greek, it is Zoroastrian, it has absolutely nothing to do with Judaism or Christianity. Okay. In both of those traditions, the body is so sacred that the body is resurrected. If you go to Jewish heaven, which I want to go to, I want to sit around in white robes and sing to God. That would be boring as shit. My little baby mind, I'd be going crazy after the 3rd day. But in Judaism, you get land and a house and a beautiful partner and children and the whole physical body and all the sensuality is there, but you don't die and you don't get sick. Remember, that's what we got cursed with. When Adam and Eve fell, we knew suffering when we were. There'd be no suffering, but you'll have all the sensual life. We're put here. There's a poet, Anne Sexton, and she wrote a poem called The Awful Rowing Towards God. And the last line is, God, who is all spirit, envies us, our bodies. He'd like nothing more to take a good hot bath and smoke a good cigar. Listen to that. God envies our bodies. He envies our sensuality. She envies our sensuality. She envies that. That's why we were created, to savor it, to enjoy it. And we all run around, the way to look spiritual is either to do the kind of thing or the Protestant, like you just smelled your own asshole. Yeah.
I think I think what God would like would be she would want someone to come in and clean the house, let her take a nice hot bath, and have a quiet moment with no one interrupting her.
There you go. Problem is, you can have that anytime you want, but we just won't take it.
Do not contradict me, Bart. It's not polite.
No, I'm saying it's lovely. The point is, we keep waiting for someone to give us permission to do it. I just gave it to you. As if you needed it, but something's blocking you. I don't know what it is. Go take that bath. Make it smell good. Essential oils, candles.
I would take that bath if I didn't have a hole in my leg.
Well, excuses, excuses. So, anybody else? Don't you just love sibling banter? The rest of you, I can't tell. Are you like, Guy?
I was just going to say the thing that keeps popping up here, the overriding idea that I keep getting in today's, deep dive into this subject is maintaining balance. And, you have to experience all of these different things, uh, separately, but then taking those things too far is not a good thing, right? And so exploring the sexuality and all things associated with that is super healthy in its place, I think, and too much of that, like anything really, is probably not healthy. And so those were some of the things that were going through my head. Maybe we use alcohol to open up some avenues in our lives, and then you start relying on that, you know so or whatever it is that you're using to get another result.
Right.
So anyway, those are my thoughts.
And you're right. All right. Now, first, I'd like to say, hear the fear that's been instilled about excess. You notice my shirt says "Stay wild." Um, Divinity is never going to be controlled, Guy. Okay, God is wild, untamed energy, and it terrifies the ego. And that's why religion exists. Religion exists to tame God, to make God placatable, to make God understandable, to make God do my will. God, please get me a parking space in front of the supermarket. That's not God. Okay. That is our control. Science does the same thing. So when you're talking about the energies, and the distinction is essential, there is dopamine and there's anandamide. And we now know the two different neurotransmitters that the spiritual teachers were trying to say. If you pursue dopamine, and for those of you who don't understand neuroscience, dopamine is the neurotransmitter of I want more. So there is that gets released in some of this. That following that path and using it towards a particular end to avoid dealing with my life is deadly. So if you look at the first step in 12-step programs, it's one, I'm powerless over alcohol. Somewhere along the line, I lost the ability to not drink. And my life became unmanageable. All right. The unmanageability directly relates to me trying to control my life through alcohol or through sex or through spending or through binge watching TV. Doesn't matter what it is. My cell phone is a huge dopamine feed. Okay. Dopamine will always incapacitate you eventually because you'll build up a tolerance to it. It will take more and more of it to get to the same place. And as you're doing that, you're going to spend too much money, too much time, whatever it is, and you'll have negative life consequences. So go back to Jesus's thing, by its fruit shall you know it. Obviously, the pursuit of dopamine is negative. It's life denying, right? But it has a balance in it, okay? Because it'll kill you eventually. And that's the ultimate end of a lot of this. You said you can even look at something like gambling. Gambling is the most deadly addiction you can get, highest suicide rate, and you're not taking in any chemical, but you're getting the dopamine at the cell. Okay, let's compare this to anandamide. Anandamide is actually part of the cannabinoid receptor complex. Anandamide is the bliss hormone. Ananda means bliss. Bliss is the opposite of pleasure because bliss takes me out of ego, out of control, into the flow of life. Life has its own balance. That's what the Tao represents, is that flow between opposites. And if I open up a system, all right, if you have two beakers, one's got full, one's empty, and you want to balance them, you can sit and try and pour it and waste a lot of time trying to attain balance. The simplest way to get balance is to drill a hole in each beaker, attach it with a tube, then the pressure automatically equalizes. So the trust, the people who are religious believe in shit, but they don't trust a goddamn thing. Okay. When you're a person of faith, you fall into God. We used to do that trust exercise in therapy where you'd get up on the ladder in the tree and you'd fall backward and people would catch you. And then you see people up in the tree going, I know they're going to catch me. They're really going to catch me. And you really believe they're going to catch you, but you hadn't done shit until you let go of that tree and you fall back. Now, sometimes they don't catch you. We probably see things like that on TV now where there's those epic fails. But when they do catch you, then you know they're going to catch you. Up until then, you just suspect the shit out of it. So doing that free fall into the flow is what's asked of us. That's what faith is. Letting go in the face of fear. Everything ego's saying, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. Okay. And how many times in your life that we've got a saying in recovery, I never let go of anything that didn't have claw marks on it. Then we hang on, hang on, hang on till we fall off. And then like Pee Wee Herman, we hit the ground, go, I meant to do that. I didn't so much let go as I fell off of it because I got exhausted. But so, yeah, I hear the fear, but that trust that life has its own inherent balances. If it's not serving ego, the hardest thing. No, I'm not doing this to reach an end. I'm not using my partner as an instrument to reach God. The minute I do that, it'll shut off. But once that opens up as a possibility between us, to have the freedom and the skill to enter it and explore it. That's very different.
Well, and I think that's why, I think it's important to understand that, having balance doesn't mean suppression.
Right. Perfect. As a matter of fact, the exact opposite. So you're sitting on a balance board doing this. If you're thinking about it, trying to achieve balance,
the beakers is a good example of that. It's opening, not suppressing either one.
that's what I love about it. Okay, how we doing?
I want to know from Tiffany how her dad is.
Thank you. Give us a Timothy report.
Thanks for asking. He's doing okay, is what I'll say. I'll be with him this time next week. I will be at the airport. So,
All right.
yeah, he's gonna.
If he awaiting
okay.
test results, he indicated in a text that I sent that he'll know more
At the end of this coming week, we'll know a lot at the end of this coming week.
Are you coming to Denver?
I am coming to Denver.
Uh-oh.
Well, I'll feel your spirit here.
Thank you, Tom.
So everybody needs your thoughts and prayers. Omi, let's go.
Okay, we're going to end with 3 rounds of Om and a round of raspberry.
Where'd Jimmy
Just
go?
because.
Yeah. Ready?
Yes, deep breath in.
Have a good week, everybody.
Thank
I
you.
love
You
you, man.
too.
Thank
Take
you
care.
all.
Ooh,
Love
happy
you
birthday.
guys. See you
See
next
Thank
week.
you.
Oh, no, I won't see you next
So
week.
we'll be
Thank
thinking about
you.
you though, Tiff.
Thank you, honey.
Yes, we
Love
will.
you
Yeah.
guys.